Okay, we're gonna see if this holds up or not now. Hopefully it does. Okay, yeah, it looks like it's holding up now, which is good. I've been trying to figure out what's been causing OBS to be so laggy, and I think part of it was, at least I know last night our ISP's DNS server went down. So I had to use a different DNS in order to play, but I wasn't sure if it'd be enough to stream, so that's why I didn't stream. But now, hopefully, stream will be stable and we won't be dropping any frames or having any lag problems. So that's the hope, at least. Alright, so I haven't had much time to do some PTS testing, but like the description says, we'll be going over some stam front bar sets today. So what I did basically over this weekend, or not this weekend, over the week when I wasn't working on research and stuff, was I actually went out and got a set of Ravager, and I upgraded it all. So basically tried to get Ravager axe and dagger and then jewelry pieces, and then I upgraded it all to gold. And so the idea is the Ravager set is a heavy armor piece that you can get from Cyrodiil. You buy it from Listerius, or you can get it from like Rewards of the Worthy or whatever. Because it was a heavy set, it wasn't really used too much by stamina DPS because the jewelry was all in healthy. But now that jewelry crafting is now in the game, or at least will be in the game on PTS, we can transmute our ravaging jewelry to bloodthirsty, infused, robust, basically traits that are better suited for stamina DPS. Now, one of the reasons why people are interested in ravaging is because of that 5-piece set. When you deal melee damage, you have a 8% chance to increase your weapon damage by 645 for 10 seconds, and this basically has no cooldown because the effect can occur once every 10 seconds. So this was a set that a lot of people were taking a look into. The other one being Briarheart, Acuity, and then also to a lesser extent Advancing Warrior, which we will also be testing Berserker Warrior here. So one of the things that really interests me now is the new set Relequen. They changed it last week to what it is now. It used to be a really bad set. Now it's a very, very strong set. So it gives weapon crit, minor slayer, weapon crit, and the perfect set gives you stamina, max stamina. The imperfect doesn't give you max stamina at all. That's the only difference between them. But the proc set is what's interesting. So basically your light and heavy attacks will apply a stack of wind, which basically gets stronger and stronger with each stack that you get. But the cool thing about this is that the winds actually count as melee damage, so it'll proc Selines, and in theory it should also proc Ravager. And now also because Relequen is it's a set bonus, so therefore it can't proc, it can't crit, I should say. Proc sets are unable to crit. They changed that way back, I want to say back in like Thieves Guild or Dark Brotherhood. So Relequen makes up, on average, about 15 to 16% of your DPS. Combine that with your Monster Helm, which is probably doing around 5 to 6%, and you have about 20% of your damage incoming can no longer be crit. You know, if you're using Storm Fist, if you're using Veladreth, neither of those monster sets can crit. Combine that with Relequen, which is probably going to be the next best in slot stamina set for DPS. That can't crit, so question now is Acuity still going to be as strong now that about 20% of your damage is unable to crit? So that's kind of what we're going to be exploring today. We're going to be looking at different proc sets and going to be comparing them to Acuity. So we're really looking at Ravager. Then Briarheart's another set that I think would be interesting to see if it's strong on the front bar. We're going to look at Berserker Warrior as well. And then finally we're going to compare all that obviously to Acuity. Now, a couple of drawbacks to these sets. So Ravager, it deals melee damage, so you should always have Relequen up, so you'll always have melee damage going on, but it is a low chance to proc. It's 8%, which is probably comparable to like Bloodspawn. So if you've tanked a lot, you know how often Bloodspawn procs. So this is probably going to be around that same level of uptime. So probably around like, I'd say 50 to 60% uptime. I've seen parses where they had like 70-75% uptime. So that's I know you can get that high, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it today. So that's one of the weaknesses of Ravager. And now for Briarheart, you also have the problem with uptime. So Briarheart, when you deal crit damage, you have a 10% chance to increase your weapon damage by 449 for 10 seconds. But this effect can occur once every 15 seconds. So you actually have a 66% max uptime on Briarheart. So if you multiply 449 by 0.66, you end up getting around 300 or so weapon damage. So that's really the effective amount of weapon damage you're getting from the 5-piece set, which in reality, does this really make it that much stronger than something like Ravager or even Hunting's Rage? Now, the good side behind Briarheart and Ravager is that when these sets proc on your front bar, they carry over to your back bar, so you'll still have that weapon damage boost on your back bar, which is why they're stronger than Hunting's Rage when it comes to front bar sets. Because obviously, if you have front bar Hunting's, you lose that extra weapon damage when you swap to your back bar. And finally, for Berserker Warrior. And this is a heavy armor set initially that comes from Helra Citadel. So you're going to have to basically do that trial, and you're going to have to transmute the jewelry, because you're going to want jewelry and weapons, obviously. So when you deal melee damage, your crit strike chance increases. It's 51, but this is like based on level like 1, but it's really something closer to like... let me see if I have any Berserker pieces actually right now. Okay, I don't, so I'll have to take some out. Oh, here. So it's actually going to be close to like about 400 or so. So 386 with purple. But if we upgrade it all the way up to gold, it should jump up to about 400, I think. Yeah, so it's 400. So the problem with this is that it's a 5-second. It's only for 5 seconds, and you're on your back bar for longer than 5 seconds on average. You're normally on your back bar for about 6 seconds or so. So that's kind of one of the things that we're going to have to be careful of with Berserker Warrior, and I think that's going to be the main weakness there. That we're actually going to lose all of our stacks once we go onto our back bar. So basically, once we're back on our front bar, once we finish our back bar rotation, I don't think we're going to have all the stacks of Berserker Warrior. So we're going to have to check on Combat Metric to see the uptime on Berserker Warriors. Those are all the sets that we're going to be testing today, and then hopefully we'll have enough time to swap over to Magicka Warden and play around with Magicka Warden a little bit, see what's going to be best in slot for Magicka Wardens. I still think Sororia is going to be best in slot for stack and burns, but I'm interested in seeing how strong Julianos and Necro Potence and things like that, how those are performing on Magicka Wardens. So we are having some bar swap delay, so I just have to reload UI before we start doing some tests. So we'll start off with the Ravager, and then we'll move on to Briarheart, then we'll go with Berserker Warrior, then we'll finish off with Acuity, and we'll compare parses for all 4. So hopefully I won't have any lag spikes. I didn't have any lag spikes earlier this week when I was kind of playing around a little bit on the PTS and getting the Ravager set, so hopefully my stability stays throughout this stream here. So let's go ahead and get started here. We're going to start off with, this is the Ravager, so we are doing Dagger Axe with the Ravager, and when we do all the other tests with the Briarheart and with Acuity, we'll still be doing Axe Dagger, just so it's a true one-to-one comparison there. Although with Acuity you might want to go with Axe Sword instead, but just for the sake of comparison we're going Axe Dagger with Acuity as well. Okay. Hold on one second. When are you leaving for work? Oh, now? Okay. And you're getting back at 2, right? Okay. So you said for dinner just make the food and put it in the fridge and you'll reheat it and the taco shells? Okay. I'll do that then. Okay. Oh. What was I gonna say? Is there anything... Actually, no, I'll do that tomorrow. Okay. I was just gonna ask if there was anything you needed me to wash today in the laundry. Because I was gonna do laundry. Okay, sounds good. Sorry about that. I was just talking with... I guess she's not my wife yet, but she will be future wife in about a month. Just about house stuff. Oh, it's gonna play the intro again. Sorry, guys. Oh, I wasn't muted. I thought I muted myself. Okay, never mind. Sorry about that. Alright, so now we'll go onto our test now. So like I said, we'll start with Ravager, then we'll move on to the other sets and finish off with Acuity. I'm only going to be doing one parse for each, so that way, just to kind of speed things along. Let me just double check my attributes here. Okay, so the good thing with Ravager is because there is a health bonus, we can actually go with a lot more points into stamina compared to health. So it's really helpful since we are using Dubious on a stam sork, owing to the fact that we need to do a light attack rotation to take advantage of Ballista now. Or not Ballista, Bound Armaments, I should say. So now with the changes to stam sorks using light attack rotation, you're probably going to want to be a red guard, just because from what I've found, I'm testing on the Khajiit because my stam sork on live is a Khajiit. I still have to do a heavy attack like every 2 or 3 front bar rotations in order to sustain. So you're probably better off going with like a red guard or something if you don't have a stam sork already and you don't want to race change like I do. And so we are using Dark Deal on the back bar here to help sustain. I think even if you're a red guard as a stam sork, you're still going to have to use Dark Deal in order to sustain. So I am using Dark Deal before Hurricane and Poison Injection, and my rationale behind that is I want Hurricane to be up as long as possible because the late ticks are the ones that do the most amount of damage. And obviously we want to end with Poison Injections just so we can get the bar swap on that. For anybody who's wondering why my rotation looks the way it does. Alright, add a little bit of lag spike there. Hopefully that won't, I think that's going to end up affecting the results a little bit. But I don't think I have any parses saved for this. Okay, we'll do that one again just because of that lag spike. I feel like, because I had like a double bar swap happening there, so I do want this to be a little bit more fair. So we'll just do it again, just to make it easy and fair. Because I actually I don't know if I have any parses. I did like a real quick test when I first got Ravager set, just to see if Relequen was proccing Ravager, and it was. But I don't think I had any. I didn't think I saved that parse, so we'll have to just redo it again real fast. So I do have Trap on my front bar instead of Hurricane, but you can go with Hurricane on the front bar instead if you'd like, and then put Rearming Trap on the back bar. I just have Trap on my front bar here because of the Fighter Guild passive. Technically, Hurricane also gives weapon damage, but it gives 2% versus Rearming Trap's 3%, which is why we have that there. But you could realistically put Hurricane on the front bar as well instead of Rearming Trap, depending on how you want your rotation to look like. I think Ravager does have the potential to be very strong on classes that have a lot of dots going. So like Stam Sorks and Stamplars with jabs. But that's kind of what I'm testing right now, see how it compares to Acuity. I wouldn't necessarily go out and buy Ravager right now. Again, there is still 1 week of PTS plus the changes. Any changes they might make between the last PTS cycle and actually pushing it out onto live, so I wouldn't buy Ravager just yet. But it does seem like it is a pretty strong competitor right now. Alright, there we go. Yeah, so that lag spike earlier cost us about 1k DPS, so we'll just round it up and say 39k. So what's interesting, I want to know what the uptime on Ravager was. So I got 45% Ravager uptime. Let me see what it was on that other failed parse. 61%. So you can see here, you can get pretty good uptime on Ravager. Like, I think this is probably on the lower end of things. So if we had another like, if we got 60%, we would have had an additional, what, if that's 15%, so 15% of 645 would be around 100 extra weapon damage on average. So that's actually pretty strong. So we'd probably be able to pull close to 40k, I think, with Ravager if we got lucky with the procs and things like that. So now let's swap over to Briarheart. So again, the main problem with Briarheart that I foresee is both the lower weapon damage increase as well as the decrease in uptime. Because technically, Ravager, if you're able to time it correctly, you can get like, you can get 100% uptime. So that's kind of what I'm concerned about with Briarheart. And the other thing with the Briarheart too is I have to swap my attributes. Now, again with Ravager, because of that extra health, I can afford to put 2, maybe even 0 points into health if I want. But with the other sets I'm testing, I do have to put more points into health, because we are using Dubious in order to help ourselves sustain. So I will have to put 10 points, and even then I'm still about 300 shy of where I was with Ravager. So that's kind of the downside of using the rest of these sets going in. I'm not sure how much it will affect things, because our max stam pool is still more or less the same, because we are gaining some max stam when we compare it to Ravager, just because Ravager, let me go here. Because Ravager, you can see here, has weapon crit, weapon damage, no max stam bonus, versus Briarheart, which has stam. Acuity has max stam, and Berserker Warrior, I don't think Berserker Warrior has stam. Yeah, Berserker Warrior doesn't have stam. So our max stam is still about the same, even though we had to swap our attributes around. So that's going to be why I think that's one of the things you have to be mindful of. So this is the Briarheart test. I always mess up this like first run because I'm never sure what order I want to put all my skills in, like start all my dots in. So I am getting some lag spikes on the PTS. I'm not sure if that's specific to the PTS or if it's also affecting the stream or not. Okay, that sounds good. As long as it's just on the PTS, not affecting the stream at all. It doesn't seem like Briarheart's gonna win versus Ravager right now. Yeah. So this was Briarheart, so 37.7k, so that's pretty solidly below where Ravager is right now. So one thing that we also have to keep in mind is that Comet Metrics does some silly things with Briarheart, and you always have like 95% uptime according to CMX. However, it's really supposed to be 66% uptime max, and I think that's what's biting us right now. Because if we think about like 60% uptime on 650-ish, that would be like roughly 400-ish. So we're actually, if we compare this to like max uptime in Briarheart, then we're losing like about 100-ish uptime. So I don't think there's any way of actually checking Briarheart uptime on Combat Metrics. At least I don't believe so. Yeah, there's no way of checking it exactly, but we're never going to be able to hit the full 66% uptime. So if we assume it's something like Burning Spellweave, where we're getting anywhere between like 58 to 61% uptime, so 60% of 450 would be, what would that be? That'd be about 270. So you know, it's not going to be quite as strong. So I don't think Briarheart's going to win out versus Ravager necessarily. So now let's go ahead and do Berserker Warrior. I think I need to get weapons out for Berserker Warrior. Axe and dagger. Then I think I have to transmute them as well. So again, this is a heavy armor set, so you will have to transmute Advancing Warrior, Berserking Warrior, however you want to call it. And then again, I don't think it's going to be as good compared to Briarheart or Acuity or even Ravager, and that's because let's make you infused. That's because of that 5-second uptime, and we're on our back bar for longer than 5 seconds. We're usually on it for about 6 seconds or so, especially with Dark Deal. With Dark Deal, we're on our back bar for a lot longer because Dark Deal does have that channeled ability. So I don't think Berserker Warrior is gonna be very good compared to Briarheart or Ravager or Acuity for that matter. So it will make everything bloodthirsty, just so it's, you know, as apples to apples as we can make it. Right, there we go. Then I need to do some enchanting. Weapons, so we need poison, weapon damage, and 3 jewelry glyphs. So I know some people have been actually, at least in one of my trade guilds, people have been saying they're collecting Berserking Warrior jewelry and stuff like that. I don't think it's gonna be good because of that 5-second limitation there. See, X is infused. This goes here. Goes there. You get poison. You get weapon damage. All right, so we'll see how this goes. But I don't think it's gonna win because of the whole 5-piece effect there. So I can see when you bar swap, you get that also shiny little effect going on. Again, we're on our back bar for longer than 5 seconds, so we're losing all those stacks which I think is going to end up playing very negatively into Berserker Warrior's performance, because we're not able to carry those. At least we won't be able to carry the stacks over for the entire time while we're on our back bar. Of course, the good side is Relequen can count as melee damage, so we're able to get our stacks back up very quickly while we're on our front bar. But again, since we can't carry them between back and front, I don't know how well it's going to affect things. Again, we'll have to check common metrics to see how many stacks of Berserker Warrior we were able to get, and what's the uptime on them. Actually did better than I thought it would. So we got 38.8k. Berserker Warrior, 72% uptime on Berserker Warrior. This is the 5th stack here. So we had 78% uptime on 1 stack, 77 on 2, 3, 4. So 72% uptime on Berserker Warrior 5. And let's see, that's 2,000. So if we do 2,000 times 0.72, and then we divide that by 219. So that's an average increase of about 6.6% crit chance. So if we take into consideration when we have major savagery, we're at, what would this be, 69.2. Add in on average about 6.6, we would be sitting at about 75.8-ish on average. On our front bar and our back bar, we lose out a little bit because we have a bow. So we'd be sitting at about, like, what's that, -3, so 72.8, 72.9. So actually Berserker Warrior is actually not that bad. I thought it'd perform worse, but it actually performed pretty comparable to what was the Ravager set that we tried earlier. But again, Ravager had a little bit lower uptime. So yeah, 78.3 was our max crit chance here. Our mean was 74.2. Compare that to Briarheart, which had much lower comparatively. We're losing about like 8 to 9% additional crit chance. And then here with Ravager, we are also losing a lot, but our weapon damage mean was higher. So we got 4k here, 3.7, 3.6. So that's interesting how the extra, basically 10% additional crit made up for almost 400 additional weapon damage. So that's actually quite interesting. Berserker Warrior. Okay, so now we just have to compare it to Acuity now. I have a lot of Acuity pieces because that was the set that everyone was testing. Acuity, and then I don't think I have a, I have an axe but I don't have a dagger, so I'll have to craft a dagger real quick. You could go with Celine's. I am sticking with what's it called? Stormfist right now, just because Stormfist synergizes very well with Stamsworks. But on other classes like like for example, Stamplars or Stam Nightblades, you could go with Selene instead. Because Relequen counts as melee damage, you get more Selene procs. You can actually get Selene procs while on your back bar now, which you couldn't really do before. You could get the occasional one now and then from like Blade Cloak, but with Relequen now you can get like 2 or 3 procs of Selene's on the back bar now, which really increases the DPS you can get from it. Alright, so Acuity, which is the tried and true bread and butter for all DPS classes. So let's go ahead and see. Oops. So you can go Nern Axe or Nern Dagger. What's important is what set piece ends up, or what trait ends up being on your front bar, or not your front bar, your main hand. Because you only get about 25% of the weapon damage on your offhand, so you want Nern to make sure that's on your main hand. Oh no. Alright, so we just had a lag spike there, so I'm just going to let it, just gonna let everything expire so we can do it again. In terms of Stam Sorc DPS compared to other Stam classes, I've managed to hit around 40k max based on my testing with Acuity. I haven't tried out what I can hit max with like Ravager or anything like that yet, but keep in mind Stam Sorcs don't have access to major fracture. So if you add in another 10% or so, you're hitting about 44k with Stam Sorcs right now. At least I am. I think I've seen Royo hit, I want to say it was like 43 or 44k on a Stam Sorc without major fracture. So their ceiling is definitely lower than the Stam Nightblade, but Stam Sorcs are still pretty strong. Nightblades are still definitely top of the line when it comes to DPS. So if you take into consideration like minor berserk and major fracture, with both of which Stam Sorcs lack, they're still trailing Stam Nightblades by probably around 1k or so on a dummy test. But Stam Sorcs have a lot better survivability compared to Nightblades because of Hurricane. So that's something to keep in mind as well when you want to pick between the two of them. They also have better cleave because of Hurricane. So that's something to keep in mind there. So it's pretty close between Stam Sorcs and Stam Nightblades, but Nightblades do win out in single target. Okay, stream lag too. Okay, so that was probably then the ISP, my internet. When I eventually move up to Milwaukee for my doctoral program, I'll hopefully be able to get better internet. I think they have AT&T and Spectrum up there, so hopefully AT&T will be more stable. So there we go. That was Acuity. Okay, so Acuity pulled 39.6. So it's actually pretty close between everything when all is said and done. So yeah, so one of the reasons why I was trying to see what other sets could be good besides Acuity is because Relequen can't crit. You can see no crits, 15.3% of our DPS. Take a look at Storm Fist. That was 1, so that's 2.5, 1. Or 2.4, 1.4, so that's 3.8. So add that on to the 15.3, and you get about 19.1% of our DPS can't crit at all. So if you're using something like Veldreths or Selene, this is obviously going to go up. This is going to probably be closer to like 5% or something. So that's kind of why one of the reasons why I was seeing if these other sets would be good compared to Acuity. So it does seem like Ravager might actually be close to or on par with Acuity right now, because when we take a look at Ravager, the Ravager parse, which was the closest to the Acuity parse, this was with 45% uptime on the Ravager set. So if we had like 60% uptime or 75% uptime, like that one parse I saw from Royo, I do think Ravager might be able to, at the very least, pull even with Acuity. Maybe not beat it, but pull very, very close to Acuity. Now, there are a couple of downsides, other things you got to consider when you're taking a look at all these different sets. So first of all, Briarheart is a tradable set, so you can buy all the pieces from guild traders and stuff. But you would still have to upgrade the jewelry because Briarheart jewelry doesn't come in gold, it only comes in purple. And you still have to get the weapons, which I think are still fairly expensive. Ravager only comes from PvP, so you need to either get the AP to buy the random coffers from Vlasterius, or you need to basically PvP a lot and hopefully get lucky with rewards of the worthy. So that's something you have to keep in mind with Ravager. You can buy pieces off of guild traders as well. It is tradable. So that's another thing too. What set is this? This is Berserker Warrior. Berserker Warrior is a trial set, so you can't trade it. You can't buy it off guild traders, so you have to do Hellra Citadel in order to get pieces of Berserker Warrior. That being said, you won't have to upgrade the jewelry because it comes in gold if you finish Hellra on Vet, which is a pretty easy trial, all things considered. It's one of the easier trials in the game. So you won't have to like farm for gold tempers for your jewelry if you're going with Berserker Warrior. You just have to run it on Vet and you can get all 3 pieces. You will still have to transmute it, obviously, but since they are healthy pieces. Then you're obviously going to have to get the weapons, which will only drop in the last boss and chest, so you will have to farm HRC quite a lot if you want to get Berserker Warrior. But Berserker Warrior does have the advantage of you don't have to grind your jewelry crafting. Then obviously Acuity. Acuity here. Acuity is a craftable set, so it's... Commenter's bugging out, won't let me select it. So Acuity here is a crafted set, so it's very simple to make. You can make it yourself. It's, I believe, 6 traits. Now the downside is, and you will have to level up jewelry crafting all the way up to level 50 if you want jewelry in mechanical Acuity. And if you want Relequen, then, well, you still have to basically be able to beat Cloud Rest on Vet. And I haven't beaten Cloud Rest on Vet yet. Zamaja is a pain in the ass. We haven't gotten to execute yet. So I don't think gold, Relequen, perfect Relequen jewelry in particular, that's not going to be coming out anytime soon. Nobody's really going to be able to get that, at least for the first couple of days after release. So that's something to keep in mind too with Acuity. If you want jewelry, you're going to have to level up, grind out your jewelry crafting skill all the way up to 50, and then grind out all the materials you need to make the jewelry. So even though Acuity is crafted, if you want to go with jewelry, it's a bit of a grind there. So if I had to make a recommendation right now, based on these tests, and assuming nothing changes between like now and when Summerset is released, I'd probably say, if you can, try to get a set of Berserker Warrior. It seems like Berserker Warrior definitely defied my expectations here. It did pretty well compared to like Ravager and Acuity. So Berserker Warrior is probably going to be the easiest and quickest to get up, because you don't have to worry about farming jewelry tempers. You won't have to worry about leveling jewelry crafting all the way up. Compared to Ravager and compared to Mechanical Acuity, both of which you will have to, at the very least, get your tempers up for Ravager, and you will need to get up to level 50 jewelry crafting for Acuity. So I would say Berserker Warrior right now, if you guys want to get one of these 4 sets is probably going to be the easiest to get. Acuity still seems to be pulling out on top. I'll do a couple of more tests right now actually to see what the averages will be between Berserker Warrior, Ravager, and Acuity. So I'll do 2 more tests with each, so we have 3 tests for each and take the averages of all of them. But Berserker Warrior seems to be the easiest to get, so that's kind of where I'm leaning towards right now, saving up some Berserker Warrior. So let's go ahead and try to get a clearer picture here. We'll do 2 more parses with each of Acuity, Ravager, and Berserker Warrior. We'll discount Briar Hart just because I don't think Briar Hart's going to be quite as strong just based on the initial tests there. Then we'll take the average of all those tests and see which one pulls out ahead. So I'm kind of optimistic about Berserker Warrior and Ravager being within like 1 or 2% of Acuity. So let's do a couple more tests here. So let's go ahead and get started. I might need to make some potions and poisons halfway through. Well, we'll see. Hopefully not. Hopefully I won't have to do a reload UI either. I would say I'm far from perfect even with the ping spikes. I've just learned to deal with them, I guess is the best way to put it. Like after a while you're like, oh, okay, it just all becomes muscle memory. Your rotation just becomes sort of like ingrained in you. So like, you know, you have a lag spike, you're like, okay, I'll just keep pushing my buttons in the order that I should be pushing them in, and then, you know, when I finally get back to it, I'll see where I am and, you know, make adjustments accordingly. But even then, I know I have a lot of work to do with my rotations. If you take a look, like for instance, Style Anima's Mag Warden parse video that she just released, her bar swaps are on point. All of her animation canceling is on point. I'm not quite at that level yet. Okay, so we are... Okay, so that was a big ping spike. I'm pretty sure that affected the stream as well. Let me... Okay, there we go. Okay, I think the stream is back. Yeah, it's back. Okay. Yeah, I had a 7K ping spike there, so I'm just gonna reset and do it all over again. Oh, I don't need to get ultimate. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. You can blame Time Warner or whatever they're called now. I think it's like Spectrum or something. They're my internet providers. Like I said, last night their DNS kind of crapped out on them for like 3 or 4 hours. I think I was raiding on my hotspot last night, which is why I wasn't streaming that Stamplar raid. So while we're doing all this testing, If you guys have any questions you want to ask me, feel free to bring them up in the comment section, chat window, whatever it's called. I'll try my best to answer them while I'm parsing. This is probably going to be pretty boring for a lot of people, unless you guys enjoy watching people parse, in which case this might be exciting. The good thing is I'll be able to go back to back to back, because I think the way the Stam Sork ulti gen ends up working out, I do think I get my ultimate up by the time I finish one parse. Oops, wrong button. Oh, I also missed yes, I'm using Axe and Dagger for all of them, just because, even for the Acuity, just because I do want to try to make as close to a one-to-one comparison as I possibly can. That's just for my sake of mind, so I can get a true apples-to-apples comparison. I've been testing around on PTS. I've been doing a couple of, like, base theory crafting stuff as well, like, you know, Axe Dagger versus Axe Sword for Acuity, and does like which hand your axe on matter for amount of the Axe Bleed chance procs. So I've been playing around with Axe Dagger and Axe Sword with Acuity, and it does seem like Axe Dagger is actually a little bit stronger than Axe Sword on Acuity. But I feel like it would also be dependent on the specific class and the specific race, so I think I'm gonna just do like a whole 3-parter on Axe Dagger versus Axe Sword on Acuity. Because like I was doing it on like Stam Sork and Nightblade, and I was getting very different results between the two of them, and I think part of it is because Stam Sorks don't have an execute, Stam Nightblades do have an execute, and my Stam Nightblade is a Bosmer, a Wood Elf, compared to my Stam Sork, which is, as you can see here, a Khajiit. So I think I'm going to have to do several different kind of permutations of Axe Dagger versus Axe Sword to kind of make a more complete understanding of what's going on here. So that's something that I do intend on doing at some point. So you should always go Nirn main hand, and the reason for that is Nirn honed on your offhand only gives you 25% of the additional weapon damage that you get from Nirn honed. And that's just because your offhand contributes about 25, it's a little bit less than 25%, but once you add in the dual wield passive, it ends up being around like 25%-ish. To your overall weapon damage. So having Nirn on your main hand will give you the full benefit of Nirn compared to having it on your offhand. Now as for where your axe goes, just based on like very cursory tests, I didn't really do anything, didn't do like a lot of parses, I only did like 2 or 3 parses. Just based on cursory tests, it doesn't seem like which hand matters for axe. So you can go axe offhand, axe main hand, just based on like my very cursory testing. It doesn't seem like it makes much of a difference. People have been saying that like, oh, you should have your axe on your main hand so you get more bleed procs, but I found that it, at least right now, it doesn't seem to be affecting it that much. So you can go axe either hand. But definitely Nirn on main hand just so you're getting the full benefit of Nirn. If you have to replace a skill on your Nightblade with Vigor, I'd probably say Rending Slashes would probably be my first choice. Rending Slashes / Blood Craze. It's probably the weakest out of all your dots, and the least important. Because you do want to keep up, basically all your other skills are pretty much like, not really negotiable. That was a little bit lower, that was 38.2. But there was no lag or anything like that, so we'll keep this one. I should pull up my Google Sheets and make sure I'm getting all this down in case I have to do like a reload UI in case of get that like bar swap delay again. Just gotta pull up my Google Sheets off screen here. That will show you guys what I have written down once we're done. Let's see, PTS tests. Okay, so we'll do Acuity parses. So this is Acuity. So what do we get? We had 39601, 39794, and this latest one was 38265. And we'll do Berserking next and see what that pulls. So first Berserking was 38816, so we'll do 2 more with Berserking. Okay. So advancing Okada. Then to check how much, how many potions and poisons I have. So I have 1500 poisons. That's good. Yeah, Acuity front bar, War Machine, Belly on Nightblades is still going to be viable next patch. If you're going for like group support, then yes, definitely stick with War Machine. That's still going to be very strong. Major Slayer is still going to be very strong. But if you're going for like selfish, then Relequen's going to end up being stronger than War Machine. But War Machine's still going to be plenty strong in the next patch. Yes, so my weapon damage, my weapon glyphs are always going to be poison on my offhand. I'm going to restart that parse because I had that lag spike there. But yes, my weapon enchants are always going to be poison on my main hand, weapon damage on my offhand. I found that to be the best combination. I've tried the opposite, which is weapon damage main hand, poison damage offhand, and the offhand enchant doesn't proc as often as the main hand enchant does. So even though the infused poison glyph on an offhand is going to be stronger, you're not really getting any more procs off it as you would anyways. So that's just what I found to be most effective. I've tried the other way around and it actually wasn't that much worse. But if you had to choose, I would probably go with the infused weapon damage over the infused poison damage. Because you're always going to have that Nirn honed on your main hand. Oh, so I'm sure some of you guys are wondering, why not use normal Relequen, because perfect Relequen, nobody's going to be able to get that for at least like a complete set of that. And that's because perfect Relequen versus normal Relequen, the only difference is that 5-piece effect on the perfect gives you some additional max stam, which doesn't really make that big of a difference when it's all said and done. It's probably like maybe like, you know, 1k or so DPS, maybe less than that. So I do think Cloud Rest is going to be a very difficult trial, and it's going to be a lot harder to progress through. It's like I said, if you guys have watched the streams of a couple of weeks ago when Mayflower was trying out Cloud Rest in the PTS, we have not cleared Zamaja. So, and Mayflower is a really good guild. We've cleared all the hard mode trials, so I do think Cloud Rest is definitely really great addition to the game in terms of like adding in a difficult trial. I think a lot of guilds, a lot of progression style guilds are going to have a lot of fun in Cloud Rest. From what I've heard in terms of Cloud Rest, like hard mode progression, just so you guys are wondering about like, oh, who's going to get the first perfected sets. From what I've heard, both Hodor and Mechanically Challenged have been working on hard mode, as well as the various +1, +2 combinations. I believe Mechanically Challenged has gotten 1+2 fight done, and they were progressing through the other +2 combination, but I'm not sure where they're at right now. Whether they're still on the PTS, because this is the EU characters. So I don't think either of them have tried hard mode yet. I think both of them are still progressing through their +2 combinations there. So who knows who's going to get first when it comes to hard mode. But Mechanically Challenged does have a strat that they want to try out for hard mode that I know of, but I'm not allowed to share that with you guys. So yeah, the non-perfect is pretty good. I think non-perfect is going to be perfectly fine for pretty much everybody. Like I said, the only difference is that additional stam from the 5-piece, which is really only going to amount to like maybe like an extra like 80 or so weapon damage, 89 or so weapon damage, which, you know, it's small. When you're at the level of like Mechanically Challenged, Hodor, Blind Luck, you want every little bit of advantage that you want. You know, when you're pushing for world first and, you know, #1 leaderboards in both servers. But for the average raider, it's not going to make that big of a difference. And yes, Celine's combined with Relequen is a very powerful combo, because Relequen's, the proc, for some reason counts as melee damage, so you can actually... Oh, my food ran out. I need to get food. Or rather, I have food, I just have to eat it and redo this parse. I would explain why my stam was so low so quick. But yeah, best in slot for Nightblades, like if you're going for just pure selfish damage, it's going to be probably going to be Acuity front bar, Relequen on your body, and then 2-piece Celine's. Because again, Relequen proc Celine's. For some reason it counts as melee damage. I don't know if that's like a bug or if it's intended or not. This was on the BTS last week, so who knows. They are going to make some changes next week, they said. Probably not a lot of balance changes. It sounds like they're going to do a lot more bug fixes for next week. Not really like any sort of balance changes. So I guess we'll see next week whether they say anything about Relequen proccing melee stuff. Because I think if Relequen no longer procs things like Celine's or Ravager, then Ravager's going to lose a lot of potency. Oh shoot, I missed my poison inject. Oh well. Missing one poison injection shouldn't cost me too much in terms of DPS. Especially since we're not below 50 yet. Oh, it's been a while since I've heard this song. I don't know if you guys can hear this music in the background, or if you guys even know what game this... if you guys can hear it, what game this music's from. Oh, this brings back so many good memories. Those of you guys who don't know, I am a 90s baby, and I was born and raised with the N64. And my favorite game of all time on that console was Banjo-Tooie and Banjo-Kazooie. The humor in that game, back when you were like 10 or 12, it was hilarious. And even now, like, I still think it's an awesome game. I'm really disappointed with what they did with nuts and bolts. It just wasn't like the classic like Banjo-Tooie gameplay that I've come to love. But this music comes from that series. Trying to remember exactly what. I think this was like if you had to do like any sort of like timed base thing, this music would be playing. So if you guys have never played Banjo-Tooie before, so that was 39.4, which is pretty good actually for Berserker Warrior. Wow, Berserker Warrior is like blowing me away. I thought it would be terrible, but like it's actually like really good. Yeah, but if you guys ever get a chance to pick up Banjo-Tooie, if you guys, I think it's on the Xbox store, since Microsoft bought out Rareware, definitely pick it up. It is an awesome game. It lasted me for like years and years, even after it was, even after like GameCube and Wii and Xbox 360 came out, I was still playing Banjo-Tooie. It was just such a good game. So that was 3 Ravagers, now 3 Berserkings, so now we'll swap over to Ravager. Definitely gonna need to make more weapon power potions though. Now we'll have to swap out my attributes because of that max health bonus, so 3-piece on the Ravager ring. Oh, Final Fantasy VII, that was a good game. I never owned it, I had to get it from Blockbuster. Blockbuster. That was an interesting. Blockbuster had a chance to buy up Netflix, and they were like, "No, brick and mortar's the way to go," and it ends up not being the case. But yeah. Final Fantasy is also really good. Was a really good series. I want to say they remade 7 on Steam. They've remade a lot of Final Fantasies on Steam. I know they've made up to 6. I think they made 7. I don't know if they got 8 or 9 yet. I've been meaning to try. I've been meaning to get 15 because I've heard good things about the Steam port. Like it actually works, and I've heard it's a pretty good game. So I do want to pick it up once it goes on sale. Hopefully we'll have a good sale, summer Steam sale. Okay, so we are getting that bar swap delay, so I am going to quickly... Okay, so it doesn't seem like I saved that. Okay, I didn't save the Ravager parts from earlier. It seems like it got overwritten. I am getting that bar swap lag, so I do need to reload UI. So we'll just do 3 Ravager things. This is also Banjo-Kazooie. Oh my god, this is the desert level. This is the desert level from Banjo-Kazooie. Yes, this is definitely it. I recognize this I recognize a lot of like this old school music. because it's just very, it's very recognizable. So you can see here that without any points into health with the Ravager, I'm already sitting at 868, so I'm actually able to put all my points into stam actually. That's what we'll do, just to make it a little bit more, so that way our health is about comparable there. Yeah, for me nowadays, when I'm not playing like old games, because I do actually play like old style games, like I still play Mario 64, I play Banjo-Tooie on like an emulator. But yeah, for me it's mostly ESO. I've been playing Dragon Age. I picked up Dragon Age Inquisition, and I've been playing DA Inquisition, and then I've also been playing Assassin's Creed Origin. I really like what they did with Origins, with Assassin's Creed. I feel like it definitely needed that kind of year break, because it was just like pumping out just constant AC games, and it's kind of like they all more or less were playing the same. Isn't necessarily a bad thing. I enjoyed every single Assassin's Creed game I picked up, but like after a while, kind of need to redo, you know, these old franchises. I've actually never played WoW. My only other MMO besides ESO, if you want to count it as an MMO, was RuneScape, and I stopped playing that like about 2 years ago because I kind of got fed up with the microtransactions and the direction of the game. If you think if you don't agree with the Crown Store on ESO, you guys would not like the microtransactions on in RuneScape. If you guys even remember RuneScape, I don't know. RuneScape was one of those like classic MMOs that you all played like in high school or middle school. People like me. Are you talking like theory crafters? Or are you talking like people who like to do endgame content? Like, because I've heard a lot of things with WoW. Because a lot of people moved like from WoW to ESO. So I've heard like raids in WoW are like very different. They're longer. They're like the combat's very different. Things like that. And actually like simulating DPS and things like that apparently is a lot easier in WoW. Like I'm not sure how that all works out. But yeah, I don't really have any intentions of moving on to WoW, especially because I anticipate my life being a lot busier once I start my dissertation in like 2 or 3 years. Well, 2 years actually. If I'm not a disserter in 3 years, I'm pretty sure I'm kicked out of my PhD program. There we go. 32.9 or nope, 32.2. I can read 32.2. There we go. That is the 73% uptime on Ravager that I was looking for. So this is like, I want to say like best case scenario. You know, you're getting 73%, 75% uptime on the Ravager, so you're looking at a huge, like your max weapon damage here is enormous, 5,200 when you're normally sitting at like around like 4,500 or so. So that's kind of like that's like pretty much like an ideal Ravager parse right there. But maybe not ideal because obviously I'm not as good as somebody like Royo or or Outcast on Stamsork. But it's definitely something that you want to be shooting for, like 70% uptime. I think is totally possible on the Ravager. Let me check poisons. 63, that's enough for 2 more parses. Why cat, not Redguard? Mainly because my Stamsork on live is a Khajiit. So my whole thing is I want to make it like my characters on the PTS during the EU copy sessions to be as accurate as possible to my live characters. So that's why I'm a Khajiit, not a Redguard. If I was a Redguard, the DPS would be probably like 1 or 2k higher. Khajiit is still a pretty good class, not class, a race to choose for stamina DPS. But yes, red guards are better, especially on a stam sork and stam nightblade, because you guys will be doing a light attack rotation. So that extra crit from Khajiits doesn't really add up too much. Plus with the Acuity meta right now, the extra crit isn't really doing you much good for about like 25% of the fight. So Khajiit kind of lost a little bit of power when people started shifting to Acuity. But the tail is so adorable. I think at the time when I made my Stam Sork, Khajiits were better, because the Red Guard, the Adrenaline passive, has been changed around a lot. I think that is the one racial passive that has been changed more often than any other racial passive in the game. Eventually, I do have a feeling that they're going to redo the Argonian Potion passive and the Red Guard's Adrenaline Rush passive. In terms of Magicka races, I think the Magicka races right now are all fairly well balanced against each other. Ooh, that was a hot parse right there. That was a 39.9 parse right there, and that wasn't even with like 70% uptime on Ravager. That's insane. This is 39.81. Damn. Ravager might actually end up having the highest parse. Yeah, Ravager right now has the highest parse between Acuity, Berserking, and Ravager. Acuity, that highest parse was 39.794. 39.881 right now is the new high. This is actually quite interesting. Ravager might actually beat out Acuity, at the very least on a Stam Sork as a Khajiit. As a Red Guard, who knows whether Ravager or Acuity would end up winning out, because those minor differences, class changes, race changes, those do have very subtle differences, like very, very minute differences in percentage. So if you're looking for like min-maxing, those little things do matter a little bit. Yes, actually, Argonians in Cyrodiil are really, really, like, really bad, apparently. Like, I'm on a Discord with a lot of endgame raiders. Toxic Raiding Environment is the name of the Discord. And Maps, one of the main healers from Mechanically Challenged, actually went on a, I don't want to call it a rant, but it was basically a rant about Argonian, the potion passive in Cyrodiil. It's basically like, you know, if you're playing an Argonian, you can pop like a spell power potion, and that'll count as a tripod. Like you'll get like almost full stam back. You'll get health back. You'll get Magicka back. You know, like a shit ton of Magicka back if you're like a Magblade or something. And like that's just like really unbalanced. Like even from like coming from like a non-PvPer, I can see like how that can be so unbalanced. Now keep in mind that my PvP experience in MMOs has really been limited to like PvP in RuneScape, which is very different. That relied more on like, you know, player skills and timing and things like that. Oh, I guess PvP here is also based on player skills, but like back when I PvP'd in RuneScape, there was like no abilities like there are in RuneScape right now. So it was very much like timing and set effects and when you're using your potions and, you know, your food and things like that. But like this is just ridiculous because like if you can just use any potion and get back like basically a third of your resources each time, that's needs to be rebalanced a little bit. I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal in PvE because, you know, you're not really playing against anybody else. But like for PvP, the Argonian passive is definitely needs to be reworked, I think. Yeah, that was one of the things Smaps was complaining about, like being able to basically use an immovability pot and still have that count as a tripod. That's just like a little bit unbalanced. That was hot. That was also hot. 39,829. Okay. So there was one Acuity parse that was a lot lower than the rest. It was 38,265 compared to 39,601 and 39,794. So I will do one more Acuity parse, just because I'm a little bit concerned about that one Acuity parse. So I'll just do a quick Acuity parse, one more. Gotta find my bloodthirsty Acuity stuff. Just because I want to say that was a that one like 38k might have been might be an anomaly. So then after this, I will show you guys the spreadsheet. It's only 3 parses for each, so it's not like very robust, but it gives us an idea a little bit, at least, behind how all these sets compare to each other. Okay, the game didn't register my poison injection, but again, not a big deal. We're still pretty early in the parse and it's not below 50%, so missing one is not going to really make or break us. Oh, balls, it didn't hit my hurricane. Oh, that was a double bar swap there. Well, that was just a complete waste of like 2 minutes of my time. Hey, look, my dual wield is now a bow. That's how I know you did a double bar swap, when your weapons are on the wrong hands. Oops. Yeah, I can show you my CP. So my green CPs is pretty much what you'd expect. 75 Mooncalf, 75 Tenacity, put the rest wherever the hell you'd like. Red CPs, I just went for the balanced approach, 64, 64, 56, 66. Blue CPs are probably what you're more interested in, right? So 64 into Mighty, and then I have 16 into Piercing. So this is assuming that you're using the Lover or you're using Twice Fang Snake. You have Alkosh and you have Torg's Infused Crusher. You're gonna need to put 16 points into Piercing in that case. Now, if you're using Twice Fang Snake, you can take out 1 point, I think. And if you're not using Alkosh, if you're not using Torg's Infused Crusher, you're going to have to adjust accordingly. So basically, the idea here is that because of the changes to Nightmother's Gaze and Sunderflame, you're basically going to have to start putting points into Piercing. 16 is going to be the bare minimum, I think, and then you're going to need to add on to that depending on the specific set pieces that you have, whether you're running Twice Fang Snake or you're running the Lover or something like that. 56 into Precise Strikes, 72 into Thaumaturge, and then 40 into Master at Arms, and 2 into Physical Weapons Expert. So this is kind of what Constellations gave me when I was doing all these parses, and it didn't really change that much between Acuity versus Ravager versus Berserker Warrior. So this is kind of the setup that Constellations at least is giving me as the ideal CP setup for blue CPs. But you can probably play around a little bit. You might be able to drop like Thaumaturge down to like, I think the next jump point is 66. So like you can drop like 66 and then like pump this up to 61 and then put that extra point into like Piercing or something. Or maybe Physical Weapons Expert if you want to hit a jump point there. But because a lot of our damage comes from damage over time abilities, that's why Thaumaturge had 72 points in it instead of this setup right here. So that's the CP setup there. And so, had a lot of questions, Nico, but Bloodthirsty is still looking to be superior to Infused on classes, stamina classes without an Execute. So this is going to be Stam Sorks, Stamina Templars, Stamina Wardens, and I think that's it, right? Stamplars, Stam Wardens, Stam Sorks, because Nightblades have an Execute, and what's the other class I'm missing? Sork, Nightblades have Execute, Templar, Sork. Oh, and DKs. DKs are also going to be using Bloodthirsty instead. So stamina, even with Stamina Nightblades, Bloodthirsty is still going to be pretty strong there. And I've been testing out like Infused versus Bloodthirsty on Stam Sork. It seems to be pretty small differences. Just based on what I've seen, it doesn't seem like it's actually that big of a difference. One of my friends who's been testing on Stamplar jewelry traits, Sycamore from Mayflower, actually, he's been testing out jewelry traits for Stamplar because he mains a Stamplar. He's found that 2 Infused and 1 Bloodthirsty worked best for his, but the difference between all of them was so small that he said you could realistically go like 3 Infused or 3 Bloodthirsty and it'd only be like 500 or so DPS difference, at least on a solo on a 6 mil dummy. Now when it comes to raid parses, we're not 100% sure what it's going to be like. So like a 500 DPS differential on a 6 million dummy usually won't end up being that, like the gap will widen a little bit, but it's not going to be like super drastic unless something weird happens. So Bloodthirsty is still technically best in slot, but there are some permutations like 2 Infused, 1 Bloodthirsty that occasionally pulls higher than 3 Bloodthirsty. Let's do this again, and hopefully I won't have like a double bar swap, lag spike, or anything like that. So this is again just making up for an Acuity parse that I think is an outlier. Oh god, this is like another. There's a lot of Banjo like Kazooie songs going on right now. It's really bringing out the like the nostalgia in me. I really want to like go to my emulator and pick up a game of Banjo Tooie now. I think this was second level of Banjo Tooie. I forget what it's called. Something something Gulch. It was a mining stage, I think. It was set like in a mine shaft, and it was very interesting. Maybe I'll stream like a Banjo Tooie run through one day, like a completionist run or something. Try to get all the jiggies and stuff. I don't think I ever got all the jiggies in my original Banjo Tooie game. I think there was one jiggy that kept on escaping me. This is bringing back a lot of memories of like middle school gaming. Okay, yeah, that one was a little bit better. That was 39097. So that's still a little bit lower than what I would normally pull, but it's like not so low that I would consider it an outlier. Okay, so now let's do alright. So now I'm gonna swap over to I have to swap over to the spreadsheet now. Let me just change a couple things up real quick. Where is it? Where is it? Okay. So here it is. This is well, not this part. This was another video I made. This was from the jewelry comparison video. But this is what we're interested in right here. So Acuity, Berserker Warrior, and Ravager. 3 parses from each, with averages for all 3. And we can see here that Ravager actually ends up beating out Acuity. Let's see by how much actually. So this minus this divided by this. So it's less than 1%. It's about like a 0.3, 0.4% difference. Enough that I would cautiously say that Ravager might be best in slot for like a stam sork. But Acuity is still definitely a contender here. Let's see about like Berserker Warrior. So Berserker Warrior again is the set that I think is going to be the easiest to farm moving up into Summerset, because you can already get the gold jewelry just by doing Vet Hell Raw, and the weapons you can just Hell Raw is a very quick trial. You can finish it in like 15-16 minutes like a normal vet. Pretty easily with a group with good DPS. So if we take a look at the difference between like Ravager and Berserker Warrior, it's probably just I think it's gonna be less than okay, so it's about 1.3%. So like you're basically trading off some like opportunity cost, like how much time do you have to spend farming for Ravager or looking for Ravager on guild traders? How long do you have to spend leveling up jewelry crafting and finding the gold temper so you can make your gold, your gold Ravager jewelry? That's kind of the opportunity cost difference there. It's about 1.3, 1.4% there. So I think, me personally, I'm probably going to try to pick up some Berserker Warrior, just because it seems like I think it's a good opportunity cost like trade-off. Like I'm losing like 1.5% DPS. In exchange, I'm gonna be ready to go right when Summerset drops, at least on a stam sork. I'm probably gonna redo these tests like on different classes to see, like for example, Nightblades, which have higher crit damage and a little bit higher crit chance, whether berserking is still good or not. I kind of want to see, whether it plays out on those classes or not. But Berserker Warrior seems like a pretty good opportunity cost, like trade-off, at least in my opinion. Like 1.5% difference for being ready right when Summerset drops on your stamina DPS. That's a pretty good trade-off there. So that's just me though. Not everybody's gonna have that same sort of opinion there. Let's hop back to ESO. So yeah, so it seems like Ravager is a good set. I would, at this point, assuming nothing changes, that's the big caveat here. We're still in the PTS cycle. There's still 1 week of PTS, and then there's any changes that they make between week 5 and when the patch goes live. Assuming nothing changes between now and then, though, Ravager is definitely going to be best in slot, it seems. So definitely, I would cautiously recommend you pick up Ravager if you can find them for cheap. I wouldn't like pay like 200k for a purple ring or anything, but if you can find like Ravager jewels for like 10k or something and like get an axe and a dagger, it doesn't even have to be like the right traits. If you can get like the axe and a dagger combined for like 30k, and you have enough money to afford it, then by all means go for that. You don't have to necessarily gold out your Ravager jewelry. It'll definitely help. But golding at Ravager jewelry probably isn't going to really make or break, make that big of a difference in DPS potential there. And again, if you are in a guild that can run Hellraw Citadel fairly quickly on Vet, then it looks like Berserker Warrior is actually not a terrible choice either, at least on a Stam Sork. Again, I have to repeat these tests on like a Nightblade or a Templar, just to kind of see how it all plays out. But you can probably take these results and translate them across to Wardens and DKs, because Stam Sorks at DKs and Wardens don't have additional crit chance. They don't have additional crit damage modifiers either, so they're pretty similar to each other. The only thing I will say though is that I am a Khajiit, so that's something to keep in mind. And Stam Sorks do have that expert mage passive, so they do have a little bit higher weapon damage compared to other classes. That's because they do usually have 1 or 2 Sork abilities on their bars, even though they're Stam. So my recommendation then would be, if you can find Ravager on the cheap and you can purchase it and you don't feel bad about it and you won't feel guilty when it might change and when a patch drops, then go ahead, buy Ravager. Otherwise, I'd say probably start saving up any sort of berserking jewelry and weapons you might find if you're doing Vet Hellraw runs. Alright, so that's going to be it for the stamina side of things. Now let's hop over to our Magicka Warden and take a look there and play around with some sets there to figure out what's going to be best in slot for Magicka Wardens, because I love a Magicka Warden too much to give up on it. I want my Magicka Warden to be good. So I think last time I was on her, I was playing around with non-pet builds, I want to say. So we'll play around again with some non-pet and pet setups, see what ends up being strong. I'm interested in seeing how Necro Potence will play out against Julianos. And then also I want to see, what's it called? Scathing Mage. And compare it to Sororia for like those stack and burn fights. Obviously, I've kind of said this a lot on my streams, but Sororia is not going to be as strong for fights where you are very mobile. So, Asylum Sanctorium, for instance, you're not necessarily going to want to run Sororia for that, because you have to run around every so often. What am I at? I have Julie, I have Acuity. Now in terms of front bar sets, I can't think of any set besides Acuity that you would use on your front bar. But let's go through this. Let's go through everything just to make sure here. Natchez, Lamia, nope, nope, nope. Nope. Spellweave, probably not going to be a thing. Shroud of Lich, no. Magicka Furnace, no. Warlock, no. Prayer Shawl, no. Overwhelming Surge. Now this is a fairly interesting set, Overwhelming Surge. So whenever you activate a class ability, you have a 15% chance to surround yourself with a torrent that deals X amount of shock damage to the closest enemy within 12 meters of you every second for 6 seconds. But like a lot of proc sets, it can't crit, so I've always been hesitant to try out Overwhelming Surge. Plus it activates whenever you activate a class ability. So like this would only really be good on like a Nightblade, because Nightblades have a lot of class abilities, and like a Warden if you're using the bird as a spammable. It might be interesting to try out. This would have to be like on your body though, because whenever you activate a class ability. Worm, no. Composition, no. I'll take this out. Flame Blossom, no, not really. Gossamer, no. Drauggr's Rest, Scathing Mage, want to pick that up. Emberplasm, no. Clerians, no. Yorvolds, obviously, no. Arena sets. Archer's Mind, this is a medium set. Footman's, Healers, no. Destruction Mastery, I don't think so. Elemental Succession, probably not. Winterbourne. Winterbourne is another set that people think would be good for like Magicka Wardens, because we have an ice ability. We have Winter's Revenge, but it's such a low proc chance, and again, it can't crit, so not really worth running, I think. Glorious Defender, no. Permafrost, no. Parabellum, no. Hunt Leader, no. Battleground sets, probably not. Like, none of this is really going to be useful, I don't think. I just did dungeon sets. Trial sets. The only thing I can think of is Moondancer. That's another thing that might end up being good for a front bar proc set, if you don't want to use Acuity. Then Sororia, so we'll pick up Perfected Sororia so we can have that as a comparison. And Overland. Light armor sets. Vamp Lord, no. Spinners, nah, not really. Skooma Smuggler, no. Mother Sorrow, no. Mother Sorrow typically loses out to Acuity. Use Grimoires again. We don't have enough frost damage. Ropes of the Hist, not really. This is more like a PvP set. Ropes of the Hist. War Maiden, no. Don't have a lot of magic abilities. Withered, no. Twin Sisters, no. Business Rags, no. Martial Knowledge, this used to be best in slot way back then, but now not anymore. Stendars, no. Bloodthorn, no. Surbane, no. A lot of this stuff doesn't make sense. Oh, we do want to pick up Necro Potence. Sun, don't have any flame abilities. Streamer's Mantle, not really. Trinamax, no. Tinkerer, it's pretty underwhelming. Baharaz, not really. Sithis, Wisdom of Vanus. This is a healing set, so no. Alright, so we'll start off first with, let's see. I want to start off with pet builds or non-pet. We'll start off with pet builds, just because Magicka Warden, our true strength comes from using the bear. So let's figure out what's best. Absolute best for Magicka Wardens. So the classic that we used to do was Architect and Acuity, and I don't think that's going to change. I think Architect Acuity is still going to be best in the slot. Now, we have two options here. We can go with Scoria, or we can go with Zon. Actually, you need to put a Magicka glyph on Scoria. And that's all going to be dependent on whether you can play melee range or not. If you can't play melee range, then obviously Scoria is probably going to be the best bet. That's because we don't have a lot of sources of shock and fire damage, so Lambris isn't going to be quite as strong. Oh, we already have a jewelry glyph. And the other monster helm sets aren't going to be really that great. The only other one I can probably think of is probably Narayaneth, but I'd rather do Scoria instead. So we will try out a bear build. We're going to do ranged instead of melee. Let me see if I can reposition the dummy so it's not quite so awkward to like attack it, and put it right here. So that way we're on at least like level playing ground. Oops. And we are using the new spammable, Sigic spammable elemental weapon. It's just better for sustain overall, I think, compared to Screaming Cliff Racer. But I'll try out both. We'll start off with elemental weapon, then we'll swap to Cliff Racer and see what the difference is. Let's make sure I have charges and everything. Okay. Now I am running balance on the back bar. That's for sustain. I found that balance is actually pretty good for sustain. It's not going to be very obvious and very useful necessarily on solo parses because it does cost health. So I can only use it so much because I'm not getting healed by anybody. But like in a real raid scenario where you're going to get constant heals, you're going to have springs, you're going to have a lot of heals going on, combat prayer orbs, balance ends up becoming more useful overall for sustain. So I think... I forget who it was who started actually using balance for sustain. I know Styles was using it for sustain, and I tried it out and I liked it in a trial too. I didn't try to do it on like solo parse, so I like it. So I forget who it was, so I can't give. I don't know who it was, so I can't really give credit. But whoever thought up of it, that was a really good idea. And you can bar swap cancel out of the animation for balance. Yeah, unfortunately, frost mages don't seem to be very powerful. I actually don't think I'm hitting. I think I'm hitting him with my Winter's Revenge. It's so far out. To be a little bit more mindful of where I'm placing it. Oops. Just double cast Fletcher Infection. Oh god, what's happening with this lag? I have to redo this. Okay, let's... Okay. Right. Something weird was happening there. Yeah, I think OBS was shitting itself because everything else I was using, like, internet was running fine. Like, I was still on the game and everything. Up there it goes again. Okay. I'm just keeping an eye on OBS, and it's, like, going back and forth between, like, good, and then all of a sudden, like, it'll drop for, like, 2 or 3 seconds. And, like, drop, like, a couple frames here and there. So I'm not sure what's happening there. Whether it's like missing the encoding or whatever, but it does seem to be stable now. Okay, it does seem like it is stable again now. Let me just move around so I can see. Okay, nope, it's dropping again. It's going back up. Maybe it's the ingest server. Maybe it's. Okay. I'm gonna keep OBS up and keep monitoring it. If it does this again, I might say screw it. Of course, it starts happening right when we're doing Magicka Warden tests. But yeah, I was having a little bit of issues there in game too. I was having like a lag spike or whatever. So we'll see if it's fixed itself. Oh, was it Lyco that started using balance? Okay. Yeah, like I said, I wasn't sure who started using balance on Magicka builds. And there's a lot of like he said, she said when it comes to like who started a certain trend or something on a build. Like the first person that I know of who was using balance was Styles, but I don't know if she picked it up from somebody else or whatever. It's like half my keystrokes aren't even registering in the game right now. Like this part is noticeably worse than my one from before. I mean, it picked back up at the end, but I've definitely done better on Magicka Warden before on the PTS. And this is the one before all that bullshit with OBS started. So yeah, I'm gonna go again because some of my buttons weren't registering for some reason. So I'll just try again. Alright. Yeah, I suspect that it was probably both of them came up with it at the same time, but I don't really pay too much attention to that kind of stuff. And I've always kind of been hesitant to use balance, because I know it was like okay for Magicka Sustain, just like using it on my tank and stuff, but I wasn't like, I wasn't comfortable necessarily trusting my healers at that point when I was seriously considering you know, running Magicka Warden as one of my mains. Because at the time I was also still using Guard, because I was basically using Styles' old build. So I wasn't sure if the combination of Guard and Bell would have just been like an insta-kill in some scenarios. Okay, that time was a lag spike. Looks like we're still going through a lag spike right now on the PTS. Yeah. Or we do a reset. Yeah, another 7k ping spike. Okay. Stamina is still going to be pretty strong. Even though like Nightmare Gate and Thunderflame were nerfed, stamina has been stronger than ever because of Relequen, really. I was testing Stam Sork earlier and, you know, pulling around like 39k or so. Not sure if you guys are seeing this, but still seems to be a couple of lag spikes here and there. I'm using 3 Bloodthirsty right now. I haven't tried any sort of permutations with Magicka classes yet. I strongly suspect it's going to kind of be the same thing where different combinations are going to be stronger on different classes based on their skill sets and their abilities. This lag is really starting to piss me off. So I'm not able to get like a good parson. Yeah, all this lag is just, it's just not letting me do very good parses. Like, I've been able to hit like 38 before, but it's just not letting me do it because of all this lag. I'm gonna try one more time, and if I'm still getting like these like periodic lag spikes, it might just be best just to say screw it entirely. All this lag is really screwing things up with my rotation and stuff. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, Black Mamba. I was thinking some combination of Arcane and in Bloodthirster is probably going to be best, just because Magicka has a lot of modifiers to max Magicka. I can't see. Again, I'd have to go out and test it, but just from talking with a couple of people from like Mayflower on the toxic raiding environment, it does seem like some form of like combination between Arcane and Bloodthirsty is gonna be best. Oops. Well, that's what today was gonna be meant to test out, right? Like, if we're not using the bear, what should I be wearing instead? Because obviously, you know, the default would be like just do Julianos and Acuity or something, but I'm wondering if there's like any other sets that could be as good or better. Okay, yeah, so that's a little bit closer to what I've been able to pull, like 37k or something like that. Yeah. Is my CPs optimized? Yeah, my CP are optimized right now, I believe. Let me just double check. I'm pretty sure they're optimized. Just taking a look at what it looks like. Okay, so swipe. It's a single target, so that's direct. 6.9, 26, 32. Elemental weapon, that's also direct, 15.4. Does that end up being 47.4? 47.4. Spell orb is 1.8. That's probably also considered direct. So let's see, 0.8 would bring me up to 48.2, add 1, 49.2. Winter's Revenge, that's a dot, 8.5, that's 524. Just make sure, 60% critical crit damage, no. Scoria did 4.4, so it should be 100 minus 4.4. So 4.4, so that should be what it's like. Okay, yeah, so what I have right now is probably optimal right now. It's saying this is a new one, but it's worse, so yeah, so this is probably optimal CP right now. So it looks like 37. I could probably push 38. I've hit 38 before, but it would depend on like if I'm able to time my Acuity proc with the Bear ultimate and things like that. So 37k is not terrible, but I can definitely hit higher. I mean, Styles Anima's managed to hit like 47, so I'm gonna do. I think that was with Zahn and in melee range too. So if we go in melee range and start using rearming trap instead here, I think we'll do a little bit better in melee range with Zahn. Still going to be using balance for sustain. I think her bar setup's a little bit different than mine. She also probably doesn't have to deal with the same amount of lag as I do, which probably helps her a little bit. Yeah, I saw that. I think I want to say she double barred Ellie weapon versus what I'm doing right now, which is just single barring it. I'll have to go back and look at her video and see what she's doing and see if I can figure out exactly what it is that she's doing. Oh, is that what it is? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Bar swapping a lot more often than I am to get that uptime. Yep, so you know, with Zahn and everything, you can break 40k in a Magicka Warden. That's, I mean, it's with Zahn, you're in melee range, you have rearming trap for pretty good amount of force uptime, almost 100% uptime minor force. You can break 40k. I got 63% Ellie weapon, or weapon damage enchant uptime, Berserker uptime. This is with the bear, remember, so that's something you gotta keep in mind. We are using a bear here. But yeah, so I know Styles has managed to hit 47k using not this specific build, but using a Magicka Warden build with the bear without using something like rearming trap. And again, I've watched the video, but it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, or when she first released it. I forget when it was. And yeah, I do remember that she double barred Ellie weapon instead of using rearming trap, I think. So she was able to basically weave Ellie weapon between each dot, I think, so that way she was able to keep it up a lot more often. As you can see here, I only got 57 Ellie weapon procs, but while I'm on my back bar, I'm not weaving Ellie weapon between reapplying all of my dots and things like that. So I'm not sure. I'll try it out, but I feel like, I don't know, I'd have to take a look at it. Because basically what that would mean is you would have your 3 dots, Blockade, Fetcher, Winter's Revenge, and just Ellie Weapon. And that's pretty much it. That'd be your pretty much your only sources of damage there. You know, and of course your bear and things like that. This was with Master Architect and Acuity. So I was doing Architect on the body and Acuity on the jewelry and a weapon. And then Zahn, obviously. I think for bear, this is pretty much going to be the way to go. It's going to be Acuity and Architect. There's really no other sets that you could really use as like a proc set, like on the front bar. Of course, you could use like Acuity on the front bar and then have a different 5-piece set active at all times. You'd have to be mindful of when you're using the bear. So you'd basically have to use the bear while you're on your front bar. But that other 5-piece set that you have active at all times, that would basically have to beat out Acuity's potential, which right now the only one I can think of is probably like Sororia. So we'll try out Sororia right now, actually. Sororia and Acuity, and see how that compares to Architect and Acuity. So we are going with the perfect version. You know, we're looking for what's best in slot, not necessarily what's realistic for everybody to get. Because again, Sororia, nobody has beaten hard mode Cloud Arrest yet, and to be honest, I don't see it coming anytime soon either. But in other news, the lag seems to have gone away, which is great. It's always good when you don't have to worry about lag anymore. Okay, I will need to, I'm just gonna unsummon my bear so I can get an ultimate without it attacking something. So we'll see how Sororia does versus Master Architect. Again, the big disadvantage of Sororia is you have to stay within this proc circle. If you leave it for longer than 5 seconds, you won't be able to maintain those stacks of damage. So that's kind of the weakness of Sororia. If you have to move around, then it's not going to be as good. You're missing some health, so we will reset you. So again, we're assuming we're going to be able to play at melee range. You know, you're able to do melee range, or you're able to jump in, be able to pop in your rearming trap every now and then. So that's kind of what we're assuming right now, because we're also using Zahn. So we're assuming you're able to stay at melee range, or within that like proc radius of Zahn. You can see when we have to do like all of our stuff on our back bar, we're losing out on Ellie weapon procs. Yeah, I mean, she could still probably break 45k with her build though, which is much better than what I'm able to pull. Like a 5k increase on 40k is pretty substantial. Alright. So with Sorority, we managed to get 41.6k, 41.7k-ish, which is pretty nice. It's pretty good for Magicka Warden. Melee Magicka Warden, I should say, because we are in melee range using Zon. So yeah, that's actually pretty good. I'm pretty impressed with what happened there. I'm actually gonna really quickly look up Styles' video and see what exactly she was doing. Kind of see what's going on there. Style anima. I just want to see like the level of, I don't want to say level of difficulty, but kind of like what's going on and there. Yeah, so she does have Ellie weapon double barred. I'm not seeing her using it very often. Okay, yeah, she is. Okay, so basically what she's doing is... Okay, I see what she's doing. I'm gonna see if I can do that. So basically what she's doing is she's keeping an eye on her buff tracker on the Berserker enchant. And what she's doing is she's swapping to the bar with the Berserker enchant, so her back bar. And so she's using that in order to kind of basically maintain 100% uptime on Berserker, which is why probably one of the reasons why her DPS is so high in that parse, being able to maintain that Berserker enchant 100% of the time, or close to 100% of the time. That's really really strong. Does she have her CP up on that video? Let me scrub through real quick. Let me see if I can find it. This is all parse. Is it in the description? Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's in the description. Okay, she has 23 into... Okay, so she has a couple more points into spell erosion, but... and a lot more points into thaumaturge than I do. I think, yeah, I only have 20 points into thaumaturge. So I'm gonna try it first with my CP setup, and then see what Constellation says, and then go from there. So she was within melee range. She was using Zon, but the thing was she was keeping an eye on her Berserker enchant. Whenever it went down, she would swap to the back bar, use Ellie weapon to make sure her Berserker enchant was up all the time. She wasn't using Minor Force, which means in order to get Minor Force, she would have to be guarded by a healer or a tank or another ranged DPS. But we'll go ahead and try out her build. And I'll keep using... I think she was using Sorority as well on that video. This is definitely going to take a lot more mental concentration comparatively, though. In order to maintain that Berserk uptime, because you're going to have to really keep an eye on your buff tracker. Jeez, I can't imagine like actually trying to do this in the middle of a raid with like mechanics and stuff. Whoops. That was a stupid mistake there. So that was a lot worse, but I think part of it was it's a very new rotation to me. But yeah, 87% uptime on the weapon damage enchant versus 69, which I had on this part here. And I think part of it is just like the rotation is very new to me. I felt like I was staring at that lower like right hand side of my screen a lot more. Just do a combat metrics import there. Yeah, it felt harder than a mag blade, but at the same time I was also like it's a very new rotation to me, so that might be part of it. So I'm gonna do it again, and I'm gonna really quickly use this to figure out 8.9. So 9 would be, what would 9 be? 30.4. So we want 30.3. And everything else is direct damage here. So LE weapon 15.2. This would be 15, 29, 34.7. And swipe was 7.6, so 0.6. And 7 would be 42.3. And spell orb is 1.8. We'll do a little bit of change. It doesn't seem like it's going to change too much. It's 2.2326 to 2.2357, but it's still going to be a change nonetheless. And hopefully, it'll also change things around as well. So I'm basing the 11 spell erosion off of you have all your possible debuffs up, so 100% Alkosh, 100% Torag's Infused Crusher, which obviously isn't realistic. I'd probably want to build like 20 points into spell erosion. But we'll try this again, and this time, hopefully, now that I've tried the rotation once, it'll make more sense to me. And yeah, Magden does seem very viable for melee DPS. For comparisons, with the Architect and Acuity parse, that was like about 40k. That was about 1k shy of what I pull on my Magicka DK. Bear in mind though that I'm a lot more comfortable, at least I think I'm more comfortable with my Magicka Warden than I am with the Magicka DK. Plus that was also with Major Slayer as well, so if you take away Major Slayer and you take away the Bear, Magicka Warden very quickly falls off, because the Bear is just a lot of DPS. So yeah, Magicka Wardens do seem viable if you're playing in melee range, if you're able to play in melee range. Even at ranged, I think they're still pretty viable. But I still have to do more tests on that. So let's see if I can do the styles rotation. So styles rotation seems to be basically a 5-second rotation based on the Berserker enchant. which probably is why it contributes so much to its difficulty. The fact that it's a 5-second duration. It's a 5-second rotation. Compared to a lot of other classes that have like a 8-second rotation. Was weird. Yeah, I seem to be capping out at around 40k or so with that new rotation. But that's with 83% weapon damage, enchant uptime too. Let me try out Styles' CP, see if that changes anything. I know I'm gonna get better DPS just from the fact that she has more points to spell erosion. She doesn't have. She has like much fewer points in staff expert than I do. So this is what we're looking at. She has, I think, so some points in LE expert actually. Puts them into Thome. So let's see if this makes that big of a difference on Summon Bear, so I can get ulti. So I mean, oh no, she was using Architect. Okay. Alright, I'll swap over to Architect then. And it seems like she had Architect. Okay, she has Acuity up at all times, so she has Acuity as her 5-piece. And Architect is the proc piece on the front bar there. That's pretty interesting. So I'll swap to Architect. But I think I'll keep Architect as my 5-piece and keep Acuity as the proc set. Hardest hitting Magicka DPS is still going to be the Magicka Nightblade, and for that you're going to want Acuity, Master Architect, and be in melee range with Zan and just stab everything to death. In terms of jewelry enchants, it's probably going to end up being like 2 arcane, 1 arcane, with the rest being bloodthirsty. But 3 arcane is still just as strong as it is. You don't have to necessarily transmute your jewelry basically for Summerset. But you probably do want to change at least one of them to bloodthirsty, especially as a Mag Nightblade, because you have a really, really strong execute. I didn't need to go on that backfire. That was definitely lower. Oh jeez. Yeah, I was like 38-3. I believe Styles when she posted that DPS. I do think that with proper like mastery of Styles' build, you can probably pull higher than what I can. I just feel like it's going to take a lot more practice comparatively, because you're basically basing it off of a 5-second rotation instead of like an 8-second rotation with centered around blockade. It's going to be a lot more bar swapping. It's pretty much going to be very similar to a Magicka Nightblade, where you're going to have to keep track of all your dots, especially your Berserker enchant. So it's going to kind of be kind of pick your poison. If you like the idea of having a 5-second rotation based on Berserker, then I feel like Style Adma's build is a perfectly good Magicka Warden build to go with. But I'm personally more of a fan of simplifying the rotation a little bit, centering it around the 8-second duration of blockade instead. And I mean, I'm sure with enough practice I could probably pull better with Styles' build than I can with my build. But I just feel like, at least for now, I'm going to stick with my build for right now, at least with the bear. Alright, so now let's stop playing with the bear. Let's now swap over to non-pet builds and figure out what's best in slot for non-pets. Let me redo my CP. Concealed weapons ended up being a little bit worse overall. Not by much. It was a pretty small difference comparatively. I'm gonna make a couple of adjustments to my CP actually. But yeah, concealed weapon on a Magicka Nightblade ended up being on average around like 800 to 1k DPS lower than something like Ellie weapon or funnel health when in melee range. It's still not a bad choice, and it could just be very well that I'm not used to weaving with it. Because I think my weave ratio was a little bit lower with concealed weapon than like funnel health or Ellie weapon. But overall, concealed weapon's not a bad choice at all. Magplar, I was playing around with melee Magplar mostly. I was mainly trying to see if Solar Barrage would be any good, and so that was kind of what I was playing around with Magplar a little bit. But that was towards the beginning of the week, and I haven't really touched it since then. I was pulling around like 38k melee Magplar with Architect and Acuity running the Sweeps ultimate, the Spear ultimate. I'd have to go back and do more testing with the Magplar. So that's kind of what I have to do at some point. Go back and do Magplar because I really love the Magplar. I love it. It's just Magicka Knight Blades are kicking its ass in melee DPS. You can see here the Magicka Warden is kicking its ass in melee. Of course, it could be just because I'm not as familiar with the melee Magplar as I am with like a Magicka Warden or Magicka Knight Blade. So I do need to go back and practice a little bit more with the Magicka Magplar. Both ranged and melee. I'm more familiar with the ranged and melee. But I think Magplars will be decent, especially for progression style guilds where you might need like a Resplar or on those tough fights. So I think it's still going to be viable. It's just not going to be like ideal if you're a score chasing kind of guild. Is Acuity going to be nerfed? I don't know. We've been saying it's good. It's gonna be nerfed. It's gonna be nerfed. Like everyone's been saying that for a really long time, but nothing has really ever happened with it yet. Like I'm not sure what's going on with it. It feels like it should be nerfed because it's best in slot for pretty much every single DPS spec in the game. But it's been, what, like 3 months now since Clockwork City was released, and they haven't touched it at all. So I don't know if it's because like they are not sure how to rebalance it. I'm not sure if it's because they think it's fine as is. I don't know if it's like we don't know how to recode it so it is balanced. Like I don't know what's going on. I think for right now it's safe, but again, who knows? We still have one more PTS cycle. We still have the changes from the last PTS cycle to live. So basically 4.0.5 up to, I guess it'd be 4.1.0, I guess, for live. Or maybe 4.0 for live. So I don't know. It's going to be hard to say. So obviously we know Sororia is going to be best in slot, but we're going to assume that we're not getting Sororia. So we haven't been able to clear Cloud Rest yet. Obviously we can't clear Cloud Rest hard mode yet. So that's what we're going to be basing our assumption on, that we're not going to be able to use Sororia at all. So we're going to be looking at melee range, so we'll be able to use Rearming Trap and Zon, and we'll also kind of be looking at ranged as well, so we're not going to be able to use Rearming Trap. We'll have to use Accelerate if we want Minor Force. Let's go ahead and get started. This is going to be assuming we're able to play melee range, but we can't play the bear for whatever reason. Now let's say like it's the serpent or something, and we don't want it to die to World Shaper or whatever. Sauce has cleansed a lot of things, though. That's the thing. I hope they don't pull something like Mother Sorrow again, but who knows. Oh, I'm out of charges on my front bar weapons. This is going to be a little bit of a lower parse. Alright, let's stop the parse because I do need to re-enchant my weapon. It's out of charges. I forgot I don't have alpha gear running, so it doesn't automatically recharge in combat. For those of you guys who don't know what we're talking about when we say Mother Sorrow treatment, back in the Horns of the Reach patch, Mother Sorrow was very, very strong. Very, very strong in the PTS because of the changes they made with, they basically like buffed the Shadow Mundus, and Mother Sorrow ended up being very strong. And so that was kind of what everyone was going for. Alcast had like made a build and already released it that used Mother Sorrow. And then on release day, they actually didn't buff the Shadow Mundus as they said they would on the PTS, and they actually nerfed Mother Sorrow, so it gave less crit overall. So that's what we're talking about when we say the Mother's Sorrow. So that was completely out of left field. Nobody was expecting it because that was like, they hadn't changed it all of the PTS patch. So, you know, you would assume that like if they were going to rebalance it, they would have done it earlier in the PTS cycle. But instead, they decided to just do it last minute between the PTS cycle for Dragon Bones, the last one, and when it dropped on live. So a lot of people were quite upset about that. I know somebody who had golded out like a set of Mother Sorrow in preparation, and so that was pretty much like, well, he just wasted a huge chunk of money just trying to gold that out. And so that's when a lot of content creators, not all of them, but a lot of them, said, I will, you know, this is where I was basically like, I'm not going to release any sort of build videos until the patch goes live in case they ever do something like that again. Yeah, like I said, Zasa said a lot of things in the past. Don't necessarily take what they say at face value. They have said in the past, like this is back like way before One Tamriel. This is like back before they had any DLCs. Back when I think it was a subscription-based game, they said we're not going to introduce jewelry crafting to the game. So they've said a lot of things in the past that they haven't really kept their promise on. And I know it's a game, it's an MMO, it's constantly evolving, but like. Part of that too is whenever they say, oh, we'll never do this, we'll never do that, that can change in a moment's notice. They just have to hire a new game developer. A new combat lead is all it takes to be like, oh, we're going to be actually doing something else instead. Something that we said that we never do, but because the new combat dev wants it, we're going to do it. Alright, so that is if you're playing melee on a Magicka Warden with Julianos. I think, yeah, this was Julianos and Acuity here. So we're looking at 36.2k. So that's a pretty big drop. That's a 4k, 5k drop. So pretty steep here. So this is kind of like the stereotypical go-to Julianos Acuity. Pretty safe build no matter what. That was because we had a second trap up. So there you have it. So that's kind of like the bare bones, basic Julie, Acuity, Zon, melee, Magicka Warden. So still pretty decent, but it still falls behind the other Magicka DPS classes. So now let's try out a couple of different sets here in place of Julianos, because Acuity is just so strong. There's no point. I don't see us replacing Acuity. So we're going to try out a couple of different sets here. And I pulled some of these sets out already. So we're going to try Necro Potence first. Now, Necro Potence is basically magic on top of magic on top of magic. And the Betty Netch does count for as a pet. So basically, if you're using Necro Potence, you're going to have to make sure you always have that pet up, your Betty Netch up at all times, which you should anyways, because it's a really big source of sustain. And now, since they changed the scaling of light attacks, I'm wondering if Necro Potence is going to be stronger. It's going to be useful at all. Of course, you're still probably going to want to use this on your pet Sork if you have a pet Sork that you're using. Recharge my back bar weapon too. So you can see here on our front bar, we're going to be sitting at, let's see, what we're at 100. Almost 40k Magicka, and then on our back bar, since we don't have inner light, we're sitting at only about 34k instead. Again, we want to start off with a Destral ult. Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do with Acuity. It feels like it needs a nerf. Like increase its proc, like decrease its proc uptime by like increasing the cooldown to 20 seconds, decrease the proc chance to 10% instead of 15%, like a small nerf like that I think would be fine. But who knows? Who knows if they're actually gonna like do it or not? That's the big thing. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So compared to Julianos, we're losing 2 things of spell crit, but we're gaining a lot more max magicka. This should, in theory, help out our sustain by having larger magicka pools. I haven't heard anything about alliance change tokens or anything like that. I feel like they won't do it, but who knows. A lot of PvPers I think would be quite upset if they introduce something like that. So with Necro, almost 37k. For comparison, the Julie Parse was 36.2. So pretty decent. Not bad at all. Necro Potence certainly does seem to help out with all of our abilities now with the scaling there. So light attacks here. It's pretty good. Yeah, so I mean everything is pretty similar between the two of them, so I don't think we're going to see too much of a difference between Necro Potence and Julianos here. The important thing with Necro Potence is you have to keep up your betting edge at all times. You have to keep it up in order to maintain that that max magicka boost. You need it. Okay, so the other set we need to try out, I pulled out a couple. Overwhelming Surge is one that we have to try, but let's do Scathing Mage first, just because that doesn't require me to change any of my skill bars around. Oh, I need to get some inventory. Backspace upgrades. I won't have enough space to pull everything out. Fully upgrade it. So Scathing Mage is pretty similar to Julianos and comes to 2, 3, 4 piece effects. So 2 spell crit, 1 max magicka. The 5 piece is where it differs though. So our 5 piece, whenever you deal direct critical damage, you have a 20% chance to increase your spell damage by 5/10 for 6 seconds. This has no cooldown essentially. You can occur every 6 seconds, so effectively no cooldown. Now direct critical damage, that is the key here. So you need to be able to deal direct damage, which is also a critical hit. So right now we're sitting at 53.4% spell crit with Major Prophecy, because we have Inner Light on this front bar here. So with Minor Prophecy added in from like a Sork, running like Crystal Frags, we'd be sitting at 56.4% crit chance. So whether that means we're going to have good uptime on Scathing Mage, we'll have to find out. So for Scathing Mage to beat out Julianos is 299, we're going to need to see 58-59% uptime from Scathing Mage. So that's kind of the number we have to beat there. And because they have the exact same 2, 3, 4 piece, it's only the 5 piece that differs. That's basically the number we have to aim for, 58-59%. If we aren't able to hit that consistently, then it's better off just running Julianos instead of Scathing Mage. I can see why they would introduce Alliance Change, but I really hope they don't. Well, I won't say really hope. It's one of those things where it's like it's a nice quality of life change that I think a lot of people have been asking for. So I don't know. We'll see. Again, we're using Scathing. We'll see how this stacks up. Honestly, if I was going to be using Scathing Mage as my 5 piece, I'd probably swap to a Force Pulse build, because Force Pulse is 3 direct damage hits. Plus, if you get a status to proc, that's an additional. Those are additional direct damage hits. I feel like with either birds or with birds or Ellie weapon, since it's only 1 direct damage hit. Well, I guess it's 2. No, it's 1 for Ellie weapon. You're not gonna get as many chances to proc Scathing Mage. Is this DK? This Donkey Kong? It sounds like Donkey Kong. Alright, so that performed noticeably worse compared to like the Julie parse. So 35.8, 57% uptime on Scathing. And again, our Julie parse was 36.2. So it's a little bit worse. It's not that bad. We were shy of the break-even point there, so that's probably contributes a little bit to our lower DPS using Scathing Mage instead of Julianos. So between Scathing Mage and Julianos, I'd probably just stick with Julianos, at least if you're using Ellie Weapon. I think if you're using something like a Force Pulse build, then Scathing Mage has more chances to proc, so it might be more beneficial for you if you're using a Force Pulse build. But if you're using Ellie Weapon, I would say just stick with Julianos. It's at least more consistent. You don't have to worry about Scathing Mage procs at all. Okay, so that was Scathing Mage. Oh, I did not pull out Burning Spellweave. I want to test out Burning Spellweave. I personally don't think Burning Spellweave is gonna win. Much like Scathing Mage, you need to break around 58% on Scathing Mage or on Burning Spellweave in order for it to beat out Julianos. Now, unlike Scathing Mage and Julianos, Burning Spellweave drops one of the spell crits for a spell damage, so you have a little bit higher spell damage on average with Spellweave compared to Julianos. So, the question now is, does that make a difference? And now Burning Spellweave does have a limit on the uptime. It can only have a 66% uptime, so you're going to need 58% out of a 66% uptime, so you need a fair amount of fire damage. Now, as a Magicka Warden, our main sources of fire damage are going to be coming from block aid or light attacks, and Ellie Weapon has a chance of proccing burning. It does magic damage, but it can proc the burning status effect, which would be another source of fire damage. If you want to include our Death Roll, we can, but that's going off so infrequently that we can pretty much ignore it. So pretty much our only consistent source of fire damage are our light attacks and flame blockade. So is it gonna help basically translate to good Burning Spellweave uptime? I personally don't think so, but again, this is why we're testing things out, to kind of see how it all plays out against each other. And then the final set that I'm going to test is going to be Overwhelming Surge, but that requires me to basically swap out Ellie Weapon with Cliff Racer instead, because it procs off of class abilities. So we want to maximize the number of class abilities we have, so we'll be using Cliff Racer instead of Ellie Weapon. So it won't necessarily be a one-to-one comparison with Julianos, Spellweave, Necro Potence, those parses. I should probably make some more spell power pots just in case I run out. But Magicka Wardens technically don't need to use spell power pots because the Betting Netch gives you major sorcery, and you can just double bar like Inner Light or something for Major Prophecy if you want to. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Okay. Alright, let's go ahead and get this parse started here. So much like with Scathing, I feel like Burning Spellweave would probably benefit more from a Force Pulse build, just because Force Pulse would add an additional source of fire damage to help proc Spellweave. Oh, I forgot Zan can also proc Burning Spellweave, since that's fire damage. It doesn't seem like Burning Spellweave is doing it either. That's not terribly surprising, considering the low amount of fire damage we're getting. Yeah, so this performed pretty similarly to Burning Scathing Mage. Burning Spell actually, the uptime was actually pretty good, 62%. So it was beating out Julianos when it came to the 5-piece effect, but it doesn't seem to be doing too much overall. So that's kind of interesting to see. Oops. So yeah, so that is Spellweave. So now let's go ahead and try something like, so now we're going to try the Dark Horse, potentially, Overwhelming Surge. So this comes from Tempest Island. It's the light armor set that drops there. So it gives 2 things of spell damage, 1 thing of Magicka, and when you activate a class ability, you basically surround yourself with basically like a Boundless Storm. This has no cooldown, so it'll be interesting to seeing how this plays out. Some people have used this set to pretty good effect on Magicka Nightblades for kind of a not quite the standard, you know, Acuity with Master Architect melee builds, but we'll have to see how this plays out for Magicka Warden with no pets. So I will have to change up my build because I do want to maximize the number of class abilities I'm using, so I'll be using Cliff Racer instead of Ele Weapon. Okay, real quick question here. For those of you guys who are watching and who have played Ocarina of Time, either the original or the remake, the Master Quest version, how many of you guys remember doing the Gerudo challenge thing for the ice arrows? Because I remember when I was playing that, I might be dating myself here, but I think I was like 8 or something, 8 or 9 when I first got Ocarina of Time. And I remember doing that when I was like 8 or 9, and it was just so difficult for like someone to, like, at that age to do a challenge like that, to do a puzzle like that. And like looking back at it now, like it was like kind of like, oh, I was so silly, how did I like not realize I was supposed to do this and that. But like when you're 8 or 9, you're not quite like as, you know, mentally agile as an adult would be. So I just remember that from my gaming days, kind of reminiscing. Alright, so let's try out Overwhelming Surge. So it does only work when you activate a class ability, and it only works in melee range. So that's kind of the 2 caveats of using of this set. So, and it's also not when you deal damage, it's whenever you cast a class ability. So you need to be doing a spammable like Birds or Funnel Health in order to get this to proc, or like sweeps or something on a Magplar. So far, just looking at the live DPS counter, it doesn't seem to be very impressive. Again, it's a proc set, so it's not able to crit whenever Acuity is up, compared to something like Julianos or Burning Spellweave or Scathing even, which gives us spell damage. So that improves all of our skills, which most of them are going to be affected by the Acuity proc. So that's one of the reasons why you don't really see that many proc sets unless they're super powerful like Relequen is right now. So that actually didn't do that badly. It did better than Spellweave and Scathing. We had 58% uptime on Overwhelming Surge, which is better than I expected. So we can see here that we did lose some DPS on everything just because we're not getting a spell damage boost from the crit set from the set anymore, because Overwhelming Surge doesn't really give us spell damage as the proc, so our max is low, 3669 compared to something like 4144 with Burning Spellweave or 3979 with Scathing. Which one is this? This was what was this one? I forget what this one was. I think this was the Julianos parse, so we had 3718 compared to 3669. So that's just because Overwhelming Surge gives us 2 spell damage boosts, which gives it about 258 spell damage, which is pretty close to 299 from Julianos. So Overwhelming Surge actually didn't do that badly, all things considered, when you compare it to the Julianos parse, which was, oops, this one here, 36-2. But again, you're really, really reliant on a proc set, so Julianos is going to be more consistent overall, even though technically, or actually, Overwhelming Surge did end up beating out Julianos. And of course, Overwhelming Surge means you have to be within melee range because it's it only procs within 12 meters, so pretty much going to be melee range there. Okay. Oh, that was the 36-9 was Necro Potence. So it does seem like Necro Potence and Julianos are winning out right now. Just, Overwhelming Surge is a kind of a dark horse set, but there are some pretty severe limitations in my eyes that kind of limit the viability of Overwhelming Surge on a Magicka Warden non-pet. So of course, these exact same sets are probably going to carry over when you do a ranged build. The only difference between a ranged build is obviously instead of using Rearming Trap, you're going to be using Accelerate instead for Minor Force. So we'll just do a parse with Necro and compare a ranged Necro parse to a melee Necro parse. We also can't use, let me see. We also can no longer use Zon because of it, so we have to use something like Scoria instead, which will also bring down our DPS as well. So we're going to have to do something like this. So we have Scoria, and then instead of running Trap, you're going to have to do either something like Guard and just double bar Guard, or you're going to have to do Accelerate on the back bar instead for your Minor Force. So we're going to do real quick a ranged Magicka Warden build. Then I need to go eat food because it's around 6:30 my time, which means it is time for dinner. I think I'm making barbecue chicken tacos tonight. And so I have a feeling that I'm surprised that Necro Potence actually did so well. Didn't expect it to scale as well as it did. But it does seem like Julianos and Acuity is probably going to be what you're going to want to run for non-pet. Can't really think of any other sets besides Sororia that you would use, or maybe Moondancer. Obviously I can't test Moondancer out because I don't have somebody to give me synergies. But I will try to ask around, see if somebody is able to give me synergies at some point. I might actually do Moondancer Acuity tonight. I'm running HRC potentially. We still need one more person to fill the slots, but we're doing HRC, and I might bring my Magicka Warden to see how Moondancer, Acuity, and One Piece Kina play out, since I'm not going to be using my bear. Let's go ahead and get started. This is a range build. Because we're doing a range build, we're going to be using birds, just because it does deal more damage the further away we are. Yeah, this is Necro Potence and Acuity right now. Just because it did the best in the melee test, so we're seeing if it translates over. Then we'll do like something like Julianus and Acuity. Oop, double cast that. Oh well. And I do think if you're playing range, you're going to want to run Cliff Racer instead of Ellie Weapon, just because Cliff Racer does do more damage the further away you are. I actually probably back up a little bit more. I think I still have a little bit of range left on my blockade. The Wind Waker theme. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. Wind Waker was such a good game. Except for the sailing part. Well, actually, I actually didn't mind the sailing part when I played it, but like going back and replaying it like on an emulator on like a 3DS, the remake, sailing part was kind of, it wasn't terrible, but it definitely could have used a little bit more fleshing out, I think. I actually remember having a lot of fun, because I'm a completionist at heart. I actually remember having a lot of fun getting all the islands, doing all the big octos that spawned, try to find them and beat them. Not sure if you guys are keeping track on the live DPS counter, but it is definitely a big drop compared to melee. Lost about 2k DPS, almost 3k DPS. So we pulled 36.9 with Necro Acuity melee range. Now we're pulling 33.9 Necro Acuity at range. So, you know, range Magplar non-pet is still bottom tier DPS when it comes to Magicka DPS. It's just, you're losing out on a lot of, you're losing out on Zan, you know, and it's just not as strong as it should be. Let me just check to see if I have if there's a better like CP distribution for this. So let's see, only Scoria couldn't proc, so that's 96.2. Then went to Cliff Racer, 20.4, so that's 39. 40.2. 40.2, and then Wind Revenge was 9.8, so that's 32, 31.9. Okay, so I'm already running pretty much like an ideal CP setup here. Alright, so we'll do Julie and Necro just to see how Julie stacks up, and then I'm gonna go make food. And then I will be streaming that HRC run, and I will I will be asking people for their Berserker Warrior rings and axe and daggers if they happen to get any, just because of the test that I just did with Stamsork. So I'll be sure to share that with people in Mayflower and Hellfire and see what they think. It'll be interesting to see their reactions based on my tests. I don't think any of them really watch my streams too much. Griever watches the stream, Sophie watches the stream, Griever's from Hellfire, Sophie's Hellfire and Mayflower, but I don't think anybody from Mayflower watches my YouTube streams. If they do, hi. Don't tell Jerd. Alright, so this is going to be the last test. It's going to be Julie Acuity on a ranged, non-pet Magicka Warden. Possibly. This is pretty much like the cookie cutter, like, if you gotta make a build and you gotta make it now, this is what you're going to go with. Gotta get out of combat with this dummy, though. There we go. Again, we're standing back, using the Cliff Racer because that extra damage we can get. That was a nice little lag spike there. We're gonna redo that just because there was like a good 4 or 5 seconds where I wasn't doing anything. I don't think there's gonna be any of the monster. I'm trying to think of other ways what else I can do to improve my DPS as a non-pet Magicka Warden at range. I'm thinking monster helm sets, maybe Narayaneth if you're using a Force Pulse build, maybe the Asylum, a perfected Asylum staff build would work. But all of those have their individual weaknesses. The perfect Asylum staff, you have to run willpower if you want to still have your monster helm set. So that's kind of things I'm thinking of right now. So I don't know. Maybe there's a different combination of skills maybe that I can try out. So if any of you guys have any suggestions for how to improve non-pet ranged Magicka Warden, feel free to let me know down in the chat. I can test it out and see if it performs better than what we're doing right now. Oh no. That was another lag spike there. Got to redo it again. Yeah, Lambrus isn't going to do much because we only really have sources of fire damage right now. Don't have any sources of lightning damage. So Scoria is going to beat out Lambrus because we can't get the double procs with Lambrus. The Ryaneth, it procs off of direct damage. We have a lot of direct damage coming in from actually not that much. It's just Cliff Racer, light attacks. That's pretty much it. I really can't think of any other ranged Magicka monster helm sets that would potentially work. And in terms of DPS sets, besides Sororia and Moondancer, which I don't want to test Sororia because you're range, which means you might be moving around a lot, so it's not necessarily going to be accurate if I'm just standing still. And then Moondancer I can't test because I don't have a synergy giver right now. Please just give me one test without any sort of lag, please. I don't know, did my Spotify playlist run out of songs already? It's only been it's only been 3.5 hours, almost. Jeez. Come on. That was weird. Like, I heard the blockade go off, but it didn't actually go off. Alright, so there we go. That was the Julie with Acuity test. Pulling out behind the Necro test, which we still have here. 33.9, 33.4 with the Julianos test here. So let's see. I think it's just the Magicka. I think it's the Magicka that's making that big of a difference here. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that we have to keep in mind there. So it does seem interesting that Necro Potence is doing better than Julianos. It might be because of the new light attack scaling. Now that Max Magicka scales a lot better with light attacks, it seems like Necro Potence is doing better on a non-pet Magicka Warden because the Betty counts as a pet. So it seems like if you're going non-pet, it seems like Necro and Acuity might actually be best in slot. Julie's pretty good as well. I'd have to do more tests. These were just kind of singular tests, so it's just like a single data point compared to a single data point. So I'm not gonna be able to say for certain whether this is true or not. And I have to go back, do at least three or five tests between Julie and Necro and kind of see which one's better. But for right now, I can tentatively say that Julianos is probably going to be second. Necro is probably going to be first. And then Spellweave, Scathing Mage, Overwhelming Surge, all three of those sets are going to be pretty decent to use. But it just seems like Necro is going to pull out ahead here. I'll have to do more tests. I'll have to see what happens with the future PTS patches. But hold on to any Necro Potence you might have that you're not using on your Magicka Sork. Shift them over to Magicka Warden if you intend on playing Magicka Wardens in the future there. Alright, so that is pretty much it for this stream here. We've been going on now for almost 3.5 hours. Did a lot of stuff with Stam Sork. I think the first hour and a half to 2 hours was Stam Sork, and then this second half was all about Magicka Wardens. Also watching OBS completely shit its bricks, trying to stream in the middle there. So we will, I'm going to go make dinner. Hopefully the HRC run will happen tonight, and if it does, I'll be streaming that. That's going to be more of a training run for a couple of people. We're not really going to be doing hard mode. We won't be doing any sort of score stuff. It's just going to be just getting people through HRC, kind of see where they're at, where any of our new vet trial members, where they're sitting at in terms of DPS, survivability, things like that. So that's kind of going to be what the HRC run tonight is going to be, if we have enough people to run it, of course. And then tomorrow night we'll be going back into halls of fabrication again with Hellfire. It's going to be again trying to get through the refab committee to Assembly General for hard mode. And if we don't manage to do hard mode in a timely manner, then we'll just swap out to non-hard mode and get people their skins. Not sure what we're going to do after we clear halls a second time. I'm going to have to take a vote with the team, see if they want to move on to Cloud Rest, if there are enough people to do Cloud Rest. Otherwise, or we'll just stick with halls and continue with our hard mode progression, or if we want to continue to, or if we want to move on to Maw or something like that, Maw hard mode. I don't think we're ready for Maw hard mode, but I mean, we'll have to see what people want to do. Spellweave and Acuity and Scoria. So I tried burning Spellweave and Acuity on a melee, and it didn't do as well as Necro Potence and Julie, which is why I was primarily focusing in on those two. But when I get a chance to jump on the PTS again, probably either like Tuesday or Monday maybe, I'll look into doing Spellweave Acuity on a Warden again, because we did have pretty good uptime on burning Spellweave, so it should in theory beat out Juliano's, but it didn't. So I'm interested in seeing if that was just kind of like a fluke, or if it's consistently going to underperform compared to Juliano's. So I'll put that on the back burner. So the next thing I want to test out on the PTS is I want to show you guys some Magplar testing, because I kind of want to now showcase some of the lesser used specs. So like Magplar, for instance, is one of them, and I might do something like Stamina Warden too, to see how Stamina Wardens are faring in the PTS as well, compared to other DPS, Stamina DPS specs. So that's it for this stream. Thank you everybody for watching. I will be back again hopefully tonight with a HRC training run. If not, I will see you on Sunday night with a Halls of Fabrication run, and hopefully we'll be able to get to Assembly General and get him down on tomorrow night. So have a great night everybody, and I'll see you guys on the next stream.